I would say that intuitively, yes, he's got to go, but I sense he is such an arrogant man, the Prime Minister. He blames everybody but himself. He blames Mandelson. He blames McSweeney. He wasn't told the truth. He wasn't on the ball. I think maybe he could stay because he's so arrogant.
Yeah, that's a great point, Ben. I do think that Starmer will, cling on by his fingernails. Actually, over the course of the next few days, he is an incredibly arrogant figure. He never apologises sincerely for anything at all. He never takes full responsibility for his actions. No. This is a sinking Labour socialist government. It's the worst government in British history, in my view. Yet Starmer doesn't take any responsibility.
Worse than, look, I like Liz Truss, but worse than the chaos of Liz Truss's tenure.
Oh, miles better. Yeah.
Why is it? Yeah. Why is it worse than Truss?
Oh, significantly worse. I mean, Liz Truss, of course, was forced out by the establishment. Keir Starmer represents the socialist establishment in Britain. He's done his best to ruin the country. The UK looks like a banana republic, frankly, under Keir Starmer. And this whole Mandelson scandal is an absolute disgrace. It's a disaster. It's hugely damaging, of course, of Britain's image on the world stage. Yeah. And you have a Prime Minister who never accepts any kind of responsibility. So I expect he will try to hang on to power. He's the equivalent of the Robert Mugabe, I think, of British politics, basically.
Mugabe, yeah. Wasn't Mugabe? I don't know. Was Mugabe responsible for killing loads of white South Africans?
Well, certainly
not
killing the killing of a lot of white Zimbabwean farmers. Yeah.
Wow.
And of course, Starmer is not responsible to that level. But if you look at
talk about the sort of incompetence of the
if you look at the sheer I think dictatorial style of this Labour government, actually it borrows heavily from figures like Mugabe. Frankly, it's that bad. Yeah. It's absolutely awful. I'm looking forward to the end of this horrific Starmer regime. But then what replaces him, of course,
could be
the leadership
worse.
of the Labour Party could well be worse. I mean, socialism destroys everything in its path, and whoever replaces Keir Starmer, I fear, actually will be even worse. Angela Rayner, for example.
Well, she's on the front page of the Mail today.
An absolute catastrophe, I think.
There's nothing more important than keeping your money and your identity safe online. And with so many VPN options available, choosing the right one can be pretty daunting. But this video's sponsor, ExpressVPN, is making the choice easier for GB News viewers. ExpressVPN is offering up to 75% off, plus 4 extra months free. That's top-level security from just £2.49 a month, and you're covered by their 30-day money-back guarantee. So just click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code now. Remember, when you're online, you are often sharing personal data, so hackers can steal your information, your passwords, your photos, and your bank details in just seconds. But ExpressVPN encrypts your connection, making it virtually impossible for hackers to access your personal information. So why choose ExpressVPN? Well, it couldn't be easier to use. With just one click, you are protected. And ExpressVPN uses military-grade AES 256 encryption, which is the same standard trusted by the US government to guard their classified information. With their new tiered plans, you can protect up to 14 devices at once and manage passwords securely. Live chat support is available 24/7, and it typically connects you in under a minute with a real person. Click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code to get up to 75% off ExpressVPN, plus 4 months extra for free. Start protecting yourself today with ExpressVPN.
Right, let's speak to my panel back in Blighty now. I think Matthew Stadlen is there and Paul Cox as well. Good morning, chaps. Matthew, what's your take on this debacle?
Well, first of all, David sounded a little bit like the Grim Reaper there. I was surprised by the strength of his take coming from The Independent. The guy you've got in the studio there, Niles, I think, I mean, I don't know what his role is, Ben, on this show. Is it as a political commentator or as a comedian? Because if it's as a comedian, he's not very funny. I know Paul is a comedian. The problem is the chap sitting next to you in America just described Starmer as like Robert Mugabe. I mean, it's just hyperbolic. It's hyperbolic nonsense, and it offends.
I did address that, Matthew.
Well, you did, but you did because you accepted that Starmer isn't killing people. Listen, I don't think I agree with you that Starmer is arrogant. I think he made a big mistake. I think he made a big mistake by appointing Peter Mandelson. It was a mistake when he did it. It was a mistake last September when the scandal broke. And it's a mistake now. And I can see the logic of those who are saying, if Morgan McSweeney is resigning because he gave Starmer the bad advice, why isn't Starmer himself resigning? My answer to that is, I don't think it would be in the interests of the country for us to go through yet another leadership challenge, yet another Prime Minister, make the same mistakes that the Tories did time and time and time again. Did anything get better in those dying years of those Conservative administrations? I would argue not. And by the way, I do agree with you, just on the analysis, I don't think Starmer is going to go. Not because he's arrogant, but because it's difficult, as you say, to get rid of a Labour Prime Minister, and there aren't obvious, suitable, at least at the moment, alternatives.
I've got a question for you, Matthew. I've got a question for you. Do you feel a bit silly having voted Labour now, or that's the wrong word? Do you feel disappointed with your vote?
I feel disappointed by how some of the first year and a half have gone, of course. I'm disappointed that this government is so profoundly unpopular at this stage. I'm disappointed that some of the good stuff that this government has done, the responsible stuff that this government has done, isn't getting the airtime because they've made missteps. What I would say to you, Ben, is that this is a very, very difficult country to govern at the moment. And let's just imagine that Nigel Farage were to become Prime Minister in 3 years' time or whatever. It's possible. If he becomes Prime Minister, we will be having very similar conversations in 3.5 years' time because he will be immensely unpopular. The last Tory governments were hugely unpopular. Whoever wins the next election,
Is that true,
because we have such fragmented politics at the moment, and voters are being pulled in lots of different directions, partly because of social media. Whoever ends up as Prime Minister, and it would include, by the way, a Labour replacement of Starmer, will be enormously unpopular. It's a very, very difficult job.
Paul, is that true? Do you think Farage would be a deeply unpopular Prime Minister?
Well, the polls don't suggest that, do they? The polls suggest that reform are raging ahead, and obviously scandal after scandal after scandal with the Labour Party is playing into Nigel's hands. Also, the longer Keir Starmer stays on is playing into Nigel's hands. One thing I would say tonight, Ben and Niall particularly, if you're going to say things to wind up Matthew, remember he's in the studio with me, not you, and I've got to sit with him during the break.
I know. Sorry about that, Paul. I'm sure you're both getting on. The thing about GB News is, and I always find it, maybe I'm alone in this, but I always find, especially in the green room, when you meet people or you speak to guests of different political persuasions, I've got no problem personally with anyone. I think Matthew, on a personal level, is quite a pleasant guy. You know, I think you're a bit left sometimes. No, I was going to say to Matthew called you a clown, or what did he say? He called you a comedian. Are you going to respond to him?
Well, firstly, Matthew, good to see you, especially after your comments last week. And
what happened last week?
I have to say that, Matthew launched an attack on my comments about Keir Starmer. Let me repeat what I said about Keir Starmer last week. Keir Starmer, in my view, is not only a completely useless and incompetent Prime Minister, he's also a complete traitor. He has betrayed the British people. He's the most treacherous British Prime Minister that we've ever seen. And the Chagos deal, the Chagos surrender deal, is an act of complete betrayal and treachery. And in my view, Starmer actually should be put on trial by a future British government for treason against the British people. So I'll repeat all that for your benefit, Matthew, because I know how much you like to hear this view. Yes, Keir Starmer is a complete traitor.
That's an outrageous and deeply irresponsible thing to say, and you should be ashamed of yourself for saying it.
Ashamed? You know who should be ashamed is Keir Starmer, actually, for running Britain into the ground. He's an absolute disgrace. He's turned the British government into a banana republic, frankly. It's an absolute disgrace. And if anyone should be ashamed here, it's those individuals who are leading this appalling, useless, incompetent Labour government. Socialists destroy everything that they touch. And Keir Starmer is a perfect example of that. And I think, Matthew, you're living in a delusional parallel universe if you think that somehow Keir Starmer deserves to stay as British Prime Minister. He deserves to be booted out as soon as possible. Unfortunately, whoever replaces him, I think, in the Labour Party is going to be even worse, which is a damning indictment.
Well, Matthew, the last word to you before we move on.
Yeah, just very quickly, I'll repeat very briefly what I said earlier in the week. The Labour government, and this was the case with the Tory government before it, were facing a judgment, not a binding judgment yet, by an international court, which would have meant that we had to give up the Chagos Islands. And to avoid having to do that and be able to continue having that strategically extremely important base that we share with the Americans, the Labour government did this deal, or is doing this deal, trying to do this deal with Mauritius. It is precisely for reasons of defending the realm and also at the same time abiding by international law, which, guess what, might be a bit unfashionable, but is still incredibly important to our great country that they are doing it. And to call our Prime Minister a traitor is disgusting and disgraceful. I'm repeating, you should be ashamed of yourself.
Matthew, nobody pays attention to anybody who's anybody now, any nation who is serious, they pay no attention to international law. America doesn't, Saudi doesn't, any high and mighty nation, they don't give a fig. Following international law, which is non-binding as well, this ruling on Chagos, is for the birds. So Starmer had a choice about Chagos. He is intent. And by the way, if you don't think the whole Chagos deal stinks, Starmer's best mate, Philippe Sands KC, representing Mauritius, the Chagosian Prime Minister who was arrested with not only briefcases full of cash, literally, like out of a film, blank British visas. Has anybody answered what that's about, by the way, as well? A suitcase full of blank British visas.
So the Tories and Labour are somehow in some sort of conspiracy, Ben. The Tories and Labour are somehow conspiring. Successive governments are conspiring against our national interests. That's absolute rubbish. It's a conspiracy theory. It's nonsense.
Tell me what you think the visas are about.
Never heard of the visas point. All I understand and believe is that this government, like the previous government, I was no fan of the previous government, is trying to work in this country's best interests. And you want us to become like Saudi Arabia? Good for you. I don't want to live in Saudi Arabia. I want us to uphold British standards, and part of that is abiding by international law.
British standards.
Last word.
Starmer's giving away a British overseas territory to a Chinese puppet, Mauritius, thanks to an advisory ruling from a kangaroo court that had a Chinese judge on it. And you think this is somehow dignified for Great Britain?
We've got to move on. We've got to move on. Matthew, in the break, go on Google the Chagosian Prime Minister who was nicked with not only briefcases full of cash, but blank British visas shortly before President Trump took power. Google it. By the way, thank you very much for the spirited debate. I'm glad we're all getting on in good spirits.